Welcome to Skin and Soul. I'm Gwenm Carsley, a transformational body, sex, and soul coach, and I'm inviting you on a bold, unfiltered journey into the heart of our humanity through the lens of Eros. This is where we strip away the shame, dive into the unspoken, and embrace the wild, raw truth of our desires. Together, we'll crack open the taboo, uncover our deepest intimacies, and awaken the pulse of our sexual essence. Because real transformation, it's messy, it's thrilling, and it's oh so delicious. Buckle up, loves. Skin and Soul Beyond the Pale starts in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Hello, everyone. I'm Gwenm. I'm your host of Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio. I'm also a body, sex, and soul coach, as well as the creator of Louvology. And thank you for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be dismantling the Erotic Blueprints by the brilliant sexologist Dyad. And I'm not just going to do the textbook version. I'm going to go deep into the depths, into its superpowers and the shadows. I've also created my own Elemental 9, which I'm just going to be fusing in there to play with a little bit. This is going to be a love letter to your body and an invitation to know the way you ache, the way you resist, and the way you ignite. So for me, the first time that I ever took one of these tests, I came out equally as an energetic kink with the shapeshifter closely behind, actually the central behind, the shapeshifter with my sexual being on the lowest part of the pie chart. And it has since changed. So I want to first present, before we start to go into each blueprint type, and there are 5 of them, there is the energetic, the sensual, the kinky, which ends up splitting up into both the psychological and the physical, as well as the sexual, and the shapeshifter. So what's really important to note in all of this is to just ask you, where do you feel like you fit in this? If you can recognize yourself in this. And maybe as you get to get a little bit better at this, you can start to see how it shows up in the people in your life. So this isn't just about what's going on in the bedroom, although how we show up in the bedroom is also how we tend to show up in our life. So I'm going to just ask you to ask you all, how do you think about what ignites you? Do you have any kind of awareness around how your arousal happens in a conscious way? So it's, like I said, it's not just about the bedroom. It's also then how you carry that arousal into life. Do you know what turns you on into life? Do you know what brings you into your aliveness? So the beauty around the erotic blueprints is, yes, we tend to fall within certain categories, right? They're part of our personality. It's how we go through life, how we have been wired for a long time. The beauty around the erotic blueprints is that they tend to come from what we would call Dr. Jack Morin's, if you've ever read The Erotic Mind, he talks about core erotic themes or your core erotic desires, which are imprinted in you when you are very young, right? So we don't tend to have a lot of control over what our desires are. And that's not saying that we don't have accountability around our desires, or that we don't have accountability around our behavior. But a lot of the things that we tend to suppress, our shames and so on, they're desires that have shown up very, very young in life. And the way Morin's erotic equation works is that what he found in working with couples was that the strongest turn-ons came from pleasure and risk, longing and resistance, wound and fantasy. So you can see that there is this attraction with excitement, which the attraction equals excitement plus an obstacle, right? So that we feel like there's something in the way, there's a tension that gets us driving forward. And so we'll often find that when we've been in a relationship a long time, that we tend to either disconnect, or that attraction just kind of seems to fade over time as we get over familiarized or disconnect from the polarity of our partner. So we are going to dive right in, and I'm just going to talk about the erotic blueprints, first of all, as an erotic love language. So instead of words, we're often speaking in moans, in breath, and in nervous system signals. They offer a doorway into understanding what turns you on and also what shuts you down. So yes, like I said, this is about what turns you on. Yes, but more than that, it's about who you become when you're turned on. What do you ache for? What do you fear? What part of you wants to be ruined or worshiped or held in that soft afterglow in just truth? So today I'm going to speak some stories. We're going to hit some edges and some sensory remembering. So this is for anyone who's ever felt too much or not enough, and who's unsure perhaps on how to speak their arousal and their desire, and also how to connect with their lovers. So to begin with, our very, very first blueprint that we're going to talk about is the energetic. And as I said, this is one of my primary blueprints. It's how I lead in life, which makes sense when I said I'm an energetic kinky. So if you can guess what kind of kinky I tend to lean towards, which is the psychological. The energetic is based in the ethereal, right? It's all about the energy. This one is subtle, nuanced, and powerful. The energetic is sacred, and the aliveness lives in the space before touch. It's the electricity in the air when someone walks into the room, the ache of longing, the pull that never quite closes. It often lives beyond the skin and into the cosmic realm. So its superpowers are deep sensitivity, intuition, and the blessed you can be totally orgasmic without ever being touched. You can feel someone's eyes across a room and climax simply from suggestion. Highly attuned to subtle shifts in the field, there's a spiritual sexual merging. Energetics thrive on anticipation and longing, the almost, the ache. They climax in the pause before the kiss. There's a lot of imagination and a creating of tension within the energetic. This is also where the archetype, the spark, lives. The archetype of the unseen, the ether, the breath between bodies, feminine or masculine in energy, but always elusive, always electric. So energetics will often, like I said, it's that gaze across the room. It is the tension. It is the kiss before it happens. Energetics can also tend to lean into tantra. So just being in that cosmic realm, that sensation of expansion. So the shadows are short-circuiting. So being touched too quickly. They can shut down fast if there's too much coming at them for too soon. And you can think of clutter, chaos, bad breath, wrong energy, and it's completely done and it's over. So there's an avoidance of messiness and rawness, and they might disassociate from the body. So that is the shadow side. So if an energetic isn't fully claiming, or they're in a situation where they don't understand why their body is shutting down, it could be because there's too much touch happening too quickly or too intensely, because they prefer either those hovering hands, the space between, or very soft touches. So this is the thing. So, and taking more time, right? So often energetics, and we'll get there after with a sexual, they can often attract each other because opposites often attract, but they're coming from very different places. So in the energetic, he never laid a finger on me, but the way he looked at my lips, it made my thighs ache. Sometimes it's not the touch, it's the suggestion of it. The inhale that never becomes the kiss. The moment your body remembers that you're made of light. The spark isn't a person. She is the pulse of possibility. I often close my eyes, lean in, and imagine his breath across my neck, and feel the waves of ecstasy without ever being touched. So I'm just going to ask you in this moment, what kind of lover do you become in the pause? Do you notice the pause? Can you take a moment of breath? Feel into the inhale, yours, the others, in the life around you. So as I was saying before, the energetic is highly attuned. to the frequency in the room. So are you the person when you walk into a room, be it a party, that the energy might completely awaken you? Or if it's an energy that's off, it might completely shut you down. So just being aware that energy really affects if that's where you live. So if you are looking to push into the edges, there are a few things that you can do. So one is tantra work. So there's breath work and working with a cosmic orbit. And if you don't know what that is, you can always chat GPT it, or you can ask me at some other point. But basically, it's taking the energy through breath and traveling it up through your spine and energy centers and all the way up, and just allowing the energy to circulate. Right, so there's many ways of taking sexual energy or life force energy and either moving it into your body and using it into life, or expanding your orgasm, expanding your pleasure, expanding the amount of time that you can stay in pleasure, and moving it through all different parts of your body. So one of the keys is to be able to stay with the sensation instead of escaping it. Right? So we talk about building a window of tolerance, playing with being watched or hovering without touch. So you can play with yourself just by rubbing your hands together and just noticing, how far you can feel into your own energy. And if you have a partner or a lover, or anyone that you can ask, you can just say, can we just, close your eyes, rub your hands, and just notice where you feel the energy and when you stop to feel the energy, how close they are to your body and how far away. And some people feel it really intensely. There's also eye gazing is a beautiful way of connecting, and just notice if you get ignited in this way, or if you can feel something stir inside of you. You can explore energetic self-pleasure, again, through breath, through sound, through visualization, just in the anticipation of being able to see your lover or in fantasy of some kind of experience. And tantra expressions are also really useful for the energetic. You can also try anticipation without release. So what does it feel like to be an energetic? Well, I know for my own self, in like the most glorious expressions, and the way we talk about this, by the way, all of them are going to be in their most glorified expressions, right? So we have parts of ourselves where we're like, oh yes, I totally see myself in this, but I haven't experienced all aspects of it. And so some of you may or may not be more developed in your expression. But what it feels like for me in my skin, it's always been a very expansive feeling. It's like waves of intense pleasure. I have left my body, but not from dissociation, but from really sensing into that cosmic space. So it can feel like drinking lightning with your skin. Think of the hairs standing up on your arm. It can feel like invisible hands and breath tantalizing you. Like your aura is being kissed before your lips are, like trembling in reverence, that the erotic becomes prayer and tension becomes seduction. It can feel like floating outside of your body or just feeling into the expansive aura, or it can feel like rhythms and waves moving through you. So how it shows up. The energetic can show up very subtly in their body language, hovering. They can be very still, but hold a lot of charge, a lot of electricity within them. They can hold eye contact and then look away, teasing with presence. They may seem shy or aloof, but that there's a tension humming under the surface, and hands hover. They don't tend to land. They're very sensitive to space. So you can't like move into the energetic too quickly. Their gait, the way they move, can float. They can seem like smoke. They don't tend to stomp or demand, but you feel them. They might linger just outside of the circle, watching, listening, or inviting the chase. Their style of clothing can tend to be flowy fabrics, veils, layers, and energy conducting materials, think silk or linen. They tend to have ethereal or spiritual tones. Think silver, moonlight, minimal jewelry that tingles. And sometimes they seem invisible, and sometimes they are extremely luminous. Their gaze is penetrating and then gone, but always electric. They stay with you. They see into your soul. They see you, but they won't stay if the energy's off. So they're very sensitive, as I said. In the room, you feel them before you see them. They shift the field, and you can feel the tingling of them before they ever say a word. So I'm just going to leave you with a quick question because we're going to move on quickly. There's a lot to cover here. So I'm just going to ask you to think about what part of you aches before you're ever touched. And what kind of lover do you become when you're silent? So just take a moment in that reflection. And I'm going to leave you here with that question, and just knowing that we're going to go into the sensual with the archetype of the tender, and which is the opening. I'm going to try to cover as much as I can today because, like I said, there's a lot here. So take a moment and we will be right back. Welcome back, and we're going to dive right in. I hope you've had a chance to just think into your own energetic, and if you know anybody that's energetic, but diving into the sensual. No one taught me that crying during sex could be beautiful, that softness and tenderness melts and opens, that scent and texture and a single violin note could make me moist. I thought I needed to be intense, but my body, she just wanted to be held, to be unwrapped like a love letter. The tender in me used to apologize for needing ambiance, for needing time, for asking, can we slow down? But I no longer apologize for wanting beauty to be part of my arousal. She lights incense before she opens her thighs. She cries with a song that is right. The sensual is a poet, the one who makes love with all of the senses. It is texture, it is perfume, it is music, candlelight, and the curve of a collarbone that is lit then by the dusk. So, the superpower, can you guess? You can get turned on by a whisper, by silk sheets, by anticipation as well. You melt into beauty. You notice the haircut, the crispness of linen, or the softness. You are ignited by your senses all around you. You can recognize one in the way they look at things with eyes wide open, seeing a painting or a beautiful view, that they love the softness of candlelight, but also can over something delicious. So their shadow is this overstimulation. If the room is too messy, if the smell is off, if someone rushes, the sensual freezes. So anyone who's ever noticed, oh God, the room is a mess, I can't go, I can't do anything until everything around me is fixed. So that is in the sensual shadow. So personally, I have lived here a lot. I've spiraled into numbness because the room was too cold. And this blueprint had taught me how to set the scene for my own body, to take the time, to take the bath, to whether it's fill it with rose petals or to put on some incense, or to just take a moment to myself in order to play my favorite music and close the door and enjoy the steam in the room and be able to really enjoy my body with oils. So the erotic themes, or the core erotic themes that comes from the sensual, is that I want to be chosen with reverence and care. I want to be loved for my softness and beauty. I want to be overwhelmed with pleasure slowly. I want the world to pause when I open. So for those sensuals out there, I'm going to ask you, What makes you melt? What song undresses your soul? How does the sensual show up? Languid, poetic. They touch their own skin often, so hair touching, lip touching. Movements tend to be slow and deliberate. So if you think of a woman swaying her hips, men also that like to touch a lot of things, notice scent, notice a woman's hair, etc. They, like I said, they hum or when they eat. Beauty mesmerizes them. They often sway. They like to be barefoot. They tend to move like when they're dancing. Their clothing is textured, can be velvet, silk, cashmere, think soft knits, earthy, rich tones. They have romantic details like lace, buttons, layers, scarves. They pay attention to the details. They wear perfume or cologne always. Their gaze is soft and receptive, and they pull you in instead of piercing you. They melt. They linger. Their gaze says, come closer, without words. In the room, you'll notice them rearranging pillows, putting out flowers, etc. They notice the candlelight, and they moan or hum or sing when the playlist is perfect for them. So the next one is what I call lives in my shadow, is the sexual. The sexual, what I call, and I hope no one gets offended, I always think of the sexual of the meat and potatoes of sex, which is yummy because we all love meat and potatoes except for vegetarians. But okay, so the sexual is direct, to the point. Foreplay has an end game. There's an immediacy. It's raw and loving the obvious. So when you think in cinema, everything we see is pretty much what the sexual is when you think of film and cinema, and even in porn in the other extreme, right? It's nudity, penetration, orgasm, genitals. It's a yes without shame. So the superpower of the sexual is amazing because they're like, yes, let's go. They're always ready. They're turned on is their default state. And there's a true appreciation for the act itself as it is. No frills. They're like, let's go. I'm good now. The shadow side of the sexual is that it can feel shallow, or it's often misunderstood. The sexuals are often labeled as too much because it's very direct, can seem a little bit harsh, or they feel guilty when their partner needs more buildup. So the other part of the shadow around the sexual is because oftentimes the sexual is not looking for any other satisfaction. I'm not saying always, this is just the standard blueprint of the let's go. So it's limiting as in not wanting to tap necessarily into other blueprints. So how it shows up, their body language is direct, it's grounded, leading from the pelvis, open chest. There's eye contact without flinching. There's a very confident touch, moving with certainty. Their gait is, they walk like they know where they're going, and that you might want to follow. So it's purposeful, it's sturdy, their heads are high, and their hips are forward. Their style of clothing is form-fitting, it's minimal, it's bold colors, doesn't hide in the body. It's their skin is exposed without apology. For women, it can look like red lipstick. For men, it could be open shirts. And they're just unbothered by other people's reactions. Their gaze is locked and confident. And it says, I know you want me, without being needy. So in the room, they're the ones that might sit with their legs spread or stand with their hands on their hips. They're not waiting to be noticed, but they already are noticed. So I'm going to ask you again, when was the last time you admitted how badly you want it? If you can tap into your sexual, maybe this is your blueprint and you're like, yes, that's me. Or if it's not and you're an energetic or a sensual, just sitting into Maybe noticing within yourself if you can tap into that for a moment, and whether you judge your own hunger. And what happens to your body when you claim your desire without apology? Are you rushing towards orgasm or letting it devour you? So I know for myself, like I said, this tends to be in my shadow because, and when I say that is that I tend to, even though I'm an energetic, and my deepest arousal really comes from this longing and this distance and the tension that is built between in the in-between space, is that I also have a level of impatience. So when I am feeling just that hunger or that desire, the way that shows up for me is it's just my sexual is very forefront there. It's very direct. And I say it's in my shadow because it stems from my impatience. And I find myself often being in a place thereafter of dissatisfaction, of wanting more and wanting to go further or slip into a slower pace. So the flame, which is part of this archetype that fits beautifully into the sexual. Sex is a portal, and from now on, I won't pretend it's anything less. I wanted him, and I said it out loud. I didn't ask for romance, or ritual, or safety. I asked for his mouth, his hands, the sound he makes before he loses control. These nights, I don't flinch from my hunger. I don't pretend I need less. I take off my shirt like it was a declaration for God, and I ride him like the altar that I am. The flame isn't soft, it is sacred, and it teaches you to let the fire speak. So what if your body's desire was holy? What if you allowed yourself the directness, the appreciation of looking at the body as the magnificent vessel that it is, in its purity, in its directness? Whether that's the skin, lips, genitals, what we think of as penetration. So just take a moment to absorb that and sink into the beauty and the magnificence of the sexual. I think I need to for a minute. All right. So the next one up is the kinky blueprint, and this is a biggie because it is split into two. It is paired with the archetype of the threshold. So the kinky is the edge walker, the one that lives on the threshold, the one who finds turn on in the taboo. And this can be psychological kink, which is why I said it pairs so nicely with the energetic. It's basically the dark side of the energetic, where power dynamics live, domination, submission, manipulation, or role play. It can also be the physical aspect. So when you think of impact play, bondage, sensation play, breath play, all of those aspects fall under the physical. So the superpower of the kinky, and this is, like I said, it's right up there together, and they pair so beautifully, is that kinky is amazing in its creativity. The kinky person or the kinky blueprint, it doesn't get bored easily. They're curious. They tend to have great imaginations, and it's also one of the most ethically expressed blueprints because there is so much clarity in communication and consent around BDSM and partner play. Just so they tend to be really versed in their communication. Not always, which is where it can fall also into the shadow. The shadow, oh, sorry, and I do want to also include that the psychological kinky can also have those superpowers of having orgasms without being touched. Yay! Such a great superpower. And the shadow of that is deep shame. And oftentimes the shame can be over years and years just gathered together because the kinky out in this world isn't always embraced, right? And especially if you are in a relationship that shames it or just won't go near it, and or how you've been brought up, whether it's in religiously or how your parents taught you about sex. So the kinky aspects of ourselves we can tend to smother, but the kinky is so interesting because there are no rules. Really, when you think of kink, or at least when I think of kink, we think of, for those of you that are terrified for kink, I'm not talking to those in this moment who are like, yes, hell, I embrace this. But to those that are really weary around the kink, it's really anything that you consider taboo. So anything out of your comfort zone, which means that if you're used to having sex in the bedroom with the lights off, it can be simply turning the lights on. So you can invite those aspects into your life in very subtle ways, but that can be very transformative and powerful. So the threshold lives where shame and arousal meet. The threshold likes impact. She moans when the rules break. And I find its highest expression in truth. I want to be wild in the taboo, but loved. When I open to the threshold, something ancient opens. So in terms of looking at core erotic themes, parts of ourselves that are imprinted into ourselves from childhood, as I brought up at the very beginning of this episode, could be that I want to be broken open, then loved for it. I want to surrender without losing my power, or I want to dominate and still be safe. I want to feel holy in the profane. How it shows up in the body language can be very contained power. So there is, again, that energetic aspect that can be, there's a mastery of energy generally in the body. There is stillness with a pulse of control or submission. The chin can tilt up or down, depending on the game. They might touch their own throat, their wrists, their mouth, and they do this subconsciously. Their movement can be very calculated, very intentional, predatory, or poised. They might glide like a dom or prowl like prey. Their clothing style can be seen in leather, latex, black lace, or very structured tailoring. They're understated from the outside, but might have some really erotic, sexy, naughty detail underneath that you're not expecting. There may be a hidden bruise or a collar underneath their scarf. Their gaze tests you, challenges you, dares you to see them. They can be intense both in their piercing eyes as much as in their aloofness. You can feel their sting. And the first thing that I thought of, and I don't think of this very often, but I thought of the Scorpio in astrology, right? That very intense energy that's very focused. In the room, they scan for power dynamics before they speak. They command or collapse, and depending on what turns them on. So if anybody here has ever heard of the term a switch, meaning that some people like to be dominated sometimes they prefer to be submissive. So a switch goes kind of back and forth. It has that ability. Or a person might really resonate with one aspect over another. So the kinky threshold. What is your most forbidden turn on? What have you not admitted, even maybe perhaps to yourself, but certainly not easily to a partner or to anyone around you? Have you ever wanted to be taken or to take? And what role do you hide because it scares you of how much it fits? And I love this question. And I'm going to leave you with this as we go into another pause. Can you feel both shame and pleasure at once? Feel them both and stay with it. All right, I will see you back in a moment. And welcome back. And we are talking about the Erotic Blueprints by Jaya. We're going deeply into the superpowers, the shadows, and also bringing in some elemental archetypes. So one of my favorites, my favorite, is the shapeshifter and the archetype of the morph. So there's a hunger in me that doesn't end. One day it's soft fingers and roses, and the next it's tightening ropes and silk and surrender. I've tried to become simple, to be one flavor for one lover, to fit into a blueprint or a box. But I am all of it. The morph doesn't pick a side. She shapeshifts, she multiplies. She needs a lover who doesn't flinch from her fullness. She is the feast. The shapeshifter is the erotic chameleon. You want everything, all the blueprints, and often, and you need more. Your superpower is that you are endlessly erotic, so you can go on and on and on. You are a master of pleasure, and you're able to speak every language fluently. Your shadow is feeling that there's an overwhelm, that you are too much, or worse, that you're never fully satisfied. So the shapeshifter tends to adapt to whatever lover is in their life. So they can tend to starve in all the other blueprints if their lover is, for instance, a sensual or a sexual or an energetic. So they will tend to adapt to whoever they are with. My own confession is that I'm a shapeshifter at heart, and I have been shamed for it. Sometimes I have been starved in it. I have been told I need to choose what kind of lover I am, but I am all of them. And so are you. So the shapeshifter or the morph, the core erotic themes are I want to be all of me and still be wanted. I want to never be too much. I want to be seen in every role I play. I want to feast and not be ashamed of my appetite, how it shows up. So the body language of the shapeshifter, I imagine, as you can imagine, is the ever-changing, mirrors the energy in the room. They can be dominant or submissive, playful or serene. They can be electric, still. It's all depending on what they're fed and who they're with and their surroundings. They have expressive hands, there's voice modulation, and they are eager to engage. They move differently with each lover each day. They can glide, strut, slither, or stomp. They shift at will. Sometimes they are unsure, and sometimes they are completely magnetic. Their clothing is eclectic. It's a mix of styles. It can change over time. It can change within a day. It spans eras and energies. They are layered in their lingerie. They can wear beautiful, soft, silky things under masculine jackets. There is no consistency except for their hunger for more. So they are the blueprint that always is seeking more. So it really does mirror the yin energy that is always seeking to expand, that is always hungry and gathering more in their curiosity and their desire to experience. And they have a huge threshold for a window of tolerance for, and it could be pain and pleasure. Their gaze is curious, thirsty, and open to surprise. They learn through looking, and they reflect what you give back. So they are great mirrors. They can also lose themselves. So they can lose themselves in another's energy. In the room, they're everywhere at once. They hold 1,000 lovers in their body, and all of them are hungry. So I'm going to ask you if you ever feel that you are too much. Do you shapeshift to be loved or to express your truth? What is the wildest mix of sensations you crave at once? And have you ever felt fully met in all of your layers? If your answer is no, you may be a shapeshifter, or maybe your answer is yes. So yes, as I said, the shadow is they can absolutely get lost in other energies. So moving on to the next one, which is my edition, and it's called the Dark Eros Blueprint. So the Dark Eros, this isn't a sixth blueprint. It's more like a vein that runs through them all. It's where desire meets shadow, where grief, rage, hunger, and longing weave into the erotic. It is the place where we say, I want you to see what I hate in myself, and I want you to love me anyway. It is mourning through orgasm. It's screaming into climax. And it's fucking to remember God. It happened after loss. My body hadn't been touched in months. And when it finally happened, I didn't come. I sobbed. I melted. Not out of sadness, but out of recognition, out of the remembering that my body was still alive. Dark Eros isn't pain. It's truth. It's rage, it's rage laced with holy. It's wanting to be taken so deeply, your soul screams with relief. The first time someone bit me, really bit me, I didn't say stop. I said finally. Dark Eros lives at the edge of the moan and the tear. Do you allow yourself, give yourself permission to feel both? Its shadow is feeling broken, feeling like your desires are wrong or dangerous, because no one talks about wanting to be consumed or the desire to consume. But the superpowers of the Dark Eros is this. This is the root of real healing. It is the truth of integration. It is the moment where you become holy because you are fully human. In my body, this is where I found love after death, both literally and figuratively. This is how I came back to life after grief, after abandoning my body and myself. Dark Eros was not my poison. It was my path. And how this shows up in the body is through the last three archetypes, the deep, the Dyad, and the Devourer. So the body language of the deep is upright but soft, rooted in presence. So if you think of a priest or a warrior monk, it is wisdom, it is depth. It is minimal movement where breath controls the room. There are hands clasped, stares through you and not at you. The Devourer is feral, coiled, mouth-focused, licks lips, scratches, tosses hair back with intention, walks like a storm you didn't know was coming. The Dyad is fluid and still. Think yin and yang fused. May dress androgynously. Posture is balanced and clear. You can't quite read them, and yet there is an invitation. In the terms of movement and gait, the deep moves like a ceremony. The Devourer moves like a panther in heat. And the Dyad moves like water deciding to be flame. So the deep is often in dark tones or bold contrast, think black and white. The Devourer is is sacred meets carnal. So think rosary and rope and silk and scars. And the Dyad wears grief, power, and seduction on their sleeve. The gaze of the deep is devotional and unwavering. The gaze of the Devourer is predatory, erotic hunger with their eyes. And the Dyad is the mirror, silent, penetrating, and emptying. In the room, they change the frequency. You feel naked even when you're fully clothed. So what part of your desire feels monstrous? What part of your desire feels holy? Where does grief live in your moan? Where do you want to be ruined gently? Where do you want to be ravished completely? Have you ever taken a moment to touch yourself in rage, in mourning, in prayer? So take a moment to think, what turns you on that you've never told anyone? And what desire do you have that you're still trying to make palatable both to yourself and perhaps to a partner? Where do you perform pleasure instead of letting it swallow you whole? Your erotic self doesn't need fixing. She needs remembering. So take a moment, close your eyes if you can and you're not driving, and breathe into your belly and say to yourself, I am allowed to want. Say it again. I am allowed to want. So to finish off, who are you in the bedroom without the masks? What blueprint do you feel that you lead with? Where are you still hiding? And what would it be like to let yourself be fully seen in your desire? If this stirred something in you, I hope that you'll tell me, that you'll write me a moon letter. Tell me what blueprint you love or fear. Tell me you're unspeakable. You can send it anonymously or not. And if you're ready to explore this in your own body, you know where to find me. But I want to leave you with, you are allowed to be dangerous, to be sweet, to be primal, to be ached, to be the altar, to be worshipped in the places that you hide in. You are not too much. You are the symphony. You are the storm and the stillness, and you are allowed to want it all. You are not a box. You can be whatever creation you choose to be and choose to step into. I remind you here again that these are flavors. These are flavors that we carry through in our lives and flavors that we act out. But the more you become aware, the more conscious you are of the flavors that you are living through unconsciously, the more you can step into what you truly do desire, what is authentic, in resonance and alignment to what you want. And we've been talking about the eroticism in terms of the bedroom. But again, I say what happens in the bedroom is also how you are living your life. So notice how you show up as the energetic. Notice how you show up in your sensual or your sexual. What kink might appear psychologically or physically, whether a good little spanking turns you on at the right moment, or just leading into a business conference with confidence. Take notice of how you are living your life. How are you experiencing your aliveness? This is skin and soul. And your skin remembers what your mind forgets. I hope you enjoyed today and that you will meet me again next week here at Skin and Soul on Transformation Talk Radio. If you would like to get a hold of me, I am at info@louvology.com. You can check out my website at gwenmcarsley.com, where you will see I'm a body, sex, and soul coach. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you for listening to Skin and Soul with me, Gwenm. Join me Fridays at 10 a.m. PST on Transformation Talk Radio. Catch the podcast anytime on your favorite platforms. You can follow me on Instagram at Louvology. Ready to take the next step? Book a compatibility call with me at gwenmcarsley.com.